Just recently, I returned from a fantastic trip out to Star Valley, Wyoming. It's a place that my wife and I go once a year and thoroughly enjoy the trip. We take our dogs, and if you're interested in following us on that, it's a Facebook page called 5 Dogs, 2 Humans. You can check that out. We do video blogs every day. It's kind of an interesting trip. But while I was out there, I had the pleasure of meeting with and doing a podcast with an osteopathic physician who's been on the show before. We actually met him in his office, and we wanted to talk about one subject and got so in-depth in the discussion that we ended up breaking it into multiple podcasts, and this is the first of those. We're going to be talking today about osteopathic medicine, what it is. It's based on the concept that the body can heal itself, which is what fitness is based on, and pretty much my entire practice, of course, is based on. But we're going to be talking today about part of your body you may have never heard of. The interesting thing is it happens to be one of the largest systems in the entire body, and it wasn't even named a system like that until just recently. But it touches every part. It is all over your body, and it's amazing the effect that it has on you and how little we know about it. So we're going to be talking about the fascia with Dr. Paul Langevin of Star Valley Osteopathy today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Hey, good day. Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for joining us today on location in Alpine, Wyoming at Star Valley Osteopathy is the way I want to say that. Am I saying that correct?
Osteopathy.
Osteopathy. Thank you. I'm glad I get one of these words right. So, hey, joining me today is my guest, Dr. Paul Langevin, the DO here at Star Valley Osteopathy.
Osteopathy.
I got it right. That's great. So, hey, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I should say welcome back to the show because we've actually done we've done a remote before talking about, and there's a reason why that I wanted to do this podcast with you. You and you've been a guest on the show before, and that is if you're a fan of the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast, you hear me talk a lot about the live age. You also hear me talk about the fact that the body can heal itself. Well, I have to say that is basically what your background is.
That's my medical practice. Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Well, let's get a little history before we dive right into it because I'm dying to talk about it. Talk a little bit about, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself because you have a very interesting background in the medical field and the military field for that matter.
Yeah, it's a pretty convoluted tale. So I went to Oklahoma State University College of Osteopathic Medicine in Tulsa, Oklahoma for med school and was not going to pay for it myself.
Right.
So I signed up for a Navy scholarship because I had been prior enlisted in the Navy.
Okay.
So it just made sense. And then did my internship at an MD program at Camp Pendleton Naval Hospital in Southern California.
Right.
And did not complete my training there and went off and did what's called flight surgery, which is military medicine. You work with a squadron or a wing, and you basically take care of the crew and the mechanics and basically the squadron.
I want to interrupt you a second there. Anytime that's ever mentioned, I always say this because it's something I'm very proud of. My father was a flight surgeon in the Air Force, and my hero, one of my two heroes, is Dr. Kenneth Cooper.
Yes.
And you may know he was a flight surgeon, Air Force flight surgeon also. So,
yes.
Pardon me, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Flight surgery training in the Navy is different than the Army and Air Force. You do your 8 weeks of death by PowerPoint, and then you go through like aviation and flight physiology, atmospheric stuff. And then for us, we actually go through what's called aviation pre-flight indoctrination.
Right.
So that's the, I'm going to date myself here. So
okay,
officer and gentleman, where they take that slide down into the pool and all that. We go through that exact same training.
Oh, man. You see how you do all the fun stuff.
Yeah, and we get rolled right into a class with pilots and naval flight officers, Marine Corps and Navy. Right. And then you get assigned to a squadron. Right. And you do about 12 weeks of flight training.
Oh, wow.
And Air Force and Army don't do that.
Oh, man.
So we can actually be air crew on the aircraft.
That's amazing. I mean, I didn't realize that you got to do all that other training.
That helicopter right there is what I used to fly.
Oh, wow. That's great. He's got a picture over to my right here hanging in his office. What model helicopter is that?
That is an MH-53E.
Okay, flying over. Actually, in the background of the picture is an aircraft carrier. Guess that's where you worked from the flight deck there. I mean, they would.
Well, no, we aircraft carriers don't. They like us because we can bring a lot of stuff because that is the largest helicopter in the U.S. military.
Oh wow, okay.
And so we're actually land based. So we're
Right.
stationed out of Sicily, and what we would do is bring stuff out to ships as they went through the Mediterranean.
Oh wow, okay. And then leave.
And
they
then
don't want you
leave.
to.
Yeah, because we're too big of a footprint.
Right. I
And
understand.
so it's a very complex aircraft. It has until they retired the shuttle, it had the most complex hydraulic system in all of aviation.
Oh wow.
And so the mantra is don't shut it down because it may not turn back on. So we would land, dump off our stuff, bring on new stuff or people, and then fly away.
Oh wow. That approach though is interesting. I think that's what I tell a lot of my clients about fitness. Don't shut it down. In other words, let's just keep moving.
Exactly.
It's kind of the same idea.
Exactly.
But you said, okay, so you had not only that training on top of your medical training there. That's amazing. But I would also liken that to the fact of having been an athlete. We have people come in with athletic injuries, athletic experiences, and I know what they've been through. I know what they're feeling. The fact that you've been through that training, you've done that, like you were talking, the sliding down, turning upside down, the disorientation of what have you. It's I think that would bode well for your practice in that position as the medical director in that situation. You can understand more of what they're going through.
Oh yes,
so
definitely.
you went through your training, and then what did that lead to? I mean, you had several years in.
So I did my tour. We actually got out. We moved to Wyoming. That's when we moved to Wyoming. Was after I was done with that stint in the Navy.
Right.
Moved to Casper. Did family medicine, but was more interested in emergency medicine and critical care.
Sure.
So I would cover these tiny little isolated ERs throughout the eastern part of the state.
Right.
Where you'd have to drive 2 hours at 85 miles an hour just to get to the next town.
Oh, wow.
We're talking isolated.
Yeah, very remote.
And so I did a lot of critical care, emergency medicine. Some nights I would just sleep all night. And then one night you'd wake up and a family of 7 rolled their Suburban doing 80 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So it could be feast or famine.
Right.
Boredom to sheer terror.
Yeah.
In about 3 seconds.
Yeah, sure.
Or you get a heart attack or a stroke that comes in. And so I did standard emergency medicine.
Yeah, I got you.
And then got a little bored with that.
Okay.
I'm a person that I'm okay in a storm.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me.
I got you.
I'm not an adrenaline junkie.
Sure.
I keep my wit about me. It's the day-to-day stuff that get to me.
Right. I understand. Yeah.
So I kind of got a little bored with that, and then we decided to go back in the Navy.
Okay.
And then I was with Marine Infantry for about 3.5 years.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I knew that I wanted to work on an aircraft carrier and be the senior medical officer on an aircraft carrier.
Wow.
So I went back to training, and that's when we met.
Yeah, in Pensacola.
And so I went back to Pensacola, did 3 years of residency in preventive medicine or aerospace medicine.
Right.
So you have public health and preventive medicine as
Okay.
the umbrella, and then you have specialties underneath that.
Right.
Aerospace medicine and occupational medicine are the 2 things that I specialized in training there.
Okay.
And I also got an MPH. That's required to get an MPH for those types of residencies.
Right.
And then 3 years there, I picked up the USS Nimitz as a senior medical officer.
You heard that? The senior medical officer on the USS Nimitz. I think that's incredible. That's amazing.
It was best job, worst job kind of situation.
I'm sure.
You don't understand the responsibility until you get there, because
Right.
not only do you have the 3,300 people that belong to the ship,
Right.
but when we go out and we take on our air wing, then you have another 1,800 people there.
Oh, wow.
Then the admiral comes on board with their staff with 100, 150 people.
Oh, my Lord.
And then an aircraft carrier, when we deploy, we also have all the small ships,
Okay.
destroyers and cruisers.
Yeah.
Their medical belongs to me too.
Oh, wow.
So now you're looking at about almost 7,500 people.
Whew.
And these ships may be thousands of miles away
exactly,
from me. And I'll get a call from, and they don't have doctors on them. They have what's called independent duty corpsmen. So I could get a call, I have this 30-year-old male with abdominal pain.
Oh, man.
And they're off the coast of India. Okay,
Oh,
what
wow.
do you do now?
Yeah, exactly.
So these are things you got to kind of work
Sure.
through. And then, so even my department alone, I had a surgeon work for me, a family practitioner. So I had about 65, 70 people work for me.
Oh, wow.
And it was a hospital.
Man, basically on the ship.
On the ship, on
Yeah.
the aircraft carrier. I have a 3-bed ICU. I have about 50 beds in the hospital. I have a lab, an OR.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
I had a physical therapist, a psychologist. So it's a hospital system that I was running.
Yeah. Massive.
And so I had about $12 million worth of equipment.
Amazing. Heck of a budget.
Yeah. And so it gets really dynamic, especially when you go out to sea.
Yeah.
And when you get what we call blue water, in other words,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
aircraft can't get to land.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you.
Those are like the point of, okay, well, I have this person with chest pain or abdominal pain. And
Right.
so what are we going to do?
If it's going to be me because there's no running off.
Exactly, yeah. So make the ship go faster. Let's get to Hawaii a day early.
Exactly. I understand.
So those are the things you have to. And as soon as you're like within aircraft range, you launch.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it.
So, and it could be something as innocuous as, wow, that's a really bad eye infection.
Right.
You need to see a surgeon. And we're in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Ooh. So the next piece of land is 1,200 miles away.
Wow.
So these are things you have to kind of think about. And
I'm sure.
And it may come down to the fact like, well, we're kind of in the middle of a war, so that's going to have to wait.
Right.
So these are things in military medicine you will never deal with.
I'm sure. The logistics alone.
Yeah. And so it's well, we could do the surgery here, but it's safer for them to do it on land. So let's send them to Dubai, first class world medicine right there in Dubai.
Sure. Yeah.
You can have surgery here, but the ship is taken off. You can meet us in the Philippines.
Oh, wow.
So things like that you have to kind of think about.
I would guess you'd have an officer or somebody involved on your staff that were just handling logistics. I mean,
that was me.
That was you. Okay, well, then you did have it. It was you. So exactly. So basically, for how long were you on the Nimitz?
3 years.
So you didn't sleep for 3 years, basically.
Yeah, I would get some calls in the, in the middle of the night. And,
Wow. Interesting history. Really not even what we wanted to talk about. I think the history of it's fantastic. You basically retired from the Navy. Is that correct?
I did. I did one more tour after the Nimitz. It was land-based, my first non-deploying tour in the Navy.
Oh, wow.
And we knew we were coming back to Wyoming. Retired in June of 22.
Okay.
And started this practice in November of 22.
Right, I got you. And that's what we want to talk about. And before we get going on this, I want to let you know how to get in touch with the show because the topic that we're going to cover is something very, very near and dear to my heart. It is something that is really at the core of my argument of the live age and also which is the basis of my entire practice. So if you're interested in learning more about this particular subject, have any questions for the show, or you have any questions about dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness, you can reach out to us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That's my email address. Personaledgefitness.com is our website, and you can hit us up on Facebook at Personal Edge Fitness. If you're so inclined, hit me up on X. It's at Team PE, and I'd love to respond to you. If you'll leave me your name, contact information, get back to you and answer your question, possibly have it on the show. But what we want to talk about today is, and we've done this before now, we've done a podcast on osteopathy, on osteopathic medicine, and what that is. Briefly describe that, because I want to dive headfirst into fascia after that.
Yeah, so osteopathic medicine is, most people probably have seen a DO, so you have two ways to become fully licensed physicians.
Okay.
You have the MD route, which is 95% of the physicians, and you have the DO route,
right?
Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine. The vast majority of DOs practice allopathic medicine, like an MD. So many people have probably seen a DO and didn't know it.
Right. Sort of like, excuse me for interrupting, when you were in between stints in the military, where you were doing that emergency work driving away. That's basically what you were doing. They may or may not have known.
Exactly.
They were seeing an osteopath.
Yeah. That's Dr. Langevin. That's Dr. John, or that's Dr. Stacy. They won't know what you are unless
you dive headfirst into it or do a podcast about it.
Exactly. Exactly. And so we predate chiropractors.
Okay.
And it was developed by a Civil War surgeon, a guy by the name of Dr. Andrew Taylor Still, A.T. Still.
Right.
And he opened up his first medical school in Kirksville, Missouri in 1892.
Right.
While he was a surgeon in the Civil War and practiced standard medicine for the time, amputations, mercury, arsenic was medicine.
Right.
He developed manipulative techniques.
Right.
Now, we know historically that people did manipulation, either bone setters and cracking and popping, or did some sort of soft tissue work for a couple thousand years.
Yeah.
And so he kind of put it together and did a lot of work on developing this. And so people flocked to him to get training from him.
Sure.
He really wanted to focus on that. But as the organization grew, others said, well, no, let's combine the two.
Okay.
Let's do medicine and surgery and run hospitals and do the manipulation as well.
Right.
And over the years, the allopathic, antibiotics came.
Yeah.
Open heart surgery.
Right.
Better surgical techniques.
Right.
Better management of blood pressure and what have you. So the DOs have kind of taken on more of an allopathic route.
Okay.
There's a cadre of us, and we are a minority,
Right.
that continue the manipulative aspect of this.
Sure.
So, well, yes, I used to do emergency medicine and critical care.
Right.
When I would have somebody and I'd put them on a vent, I'd still do manipulation on them.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. Yeah.
And you'd see, their breathing and their urinary output would be better. And so it's still a useful tool, but it's not used that much because the incentives there are not to use it.
Okay. That goes into what you and I were talking about just before we started recording the podcast. And we were talking about maybe that's not used as much anymore, but I feel like it's the elephant in the room. This DO versus MD, or as in my field, it's a personal trainer against a MD or against a physical therapist, which I think is ridiculous.
Yes.
I think it's absurd. I use the analogy all the time of construction about a carpenter doing battle with a plumber. It's just absurd. They have different fields or whatever. And you've had experience with that. You've had experience or conversations or what have you, where you had that kind of thing going on. You were telling me about it earlier.
So yeah, you would talk to some DOs who do manipulation only, and some people will take, team me. We're going to be
right.
This is what you need to do. This is all you need.
Right.
Not really. If you need a new heart,
right,
you find a really good MD
exactly.
to crack open your chest,
absolutely,
and put in a new heart
yes.
or a new valve. Okay,
yeah,
I want that guy or gal to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so when I see my patients. When patients come and see me, I'm usually their last option.
Right.
They've already seen the surgeon, and they've seen this person, and they've seen that person. They've been through 3 or 4 rounds of physical therapy.
Right.
A lot of them will say, well, you're going to help me never have to have surgery.
Yeah.
No. You're 49. You probably need a new knee, but we're going to see if we can push that surgery out 5-6 years.
Right. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Get you stronger, get you moving better.
Right.
And I want you to do the things you want to do. Like,
sure.
You see the snowy mountains here. People want to go hiking. They want to go skiing.
Beautiful scenery around here, by the way.
and so I'm trying to get them to do the things that they want to do.
Sure.
And if we can push that surgery to a more appropriate age, that's
right.
they're still going to need surgery.
Yeah, I understand. Absolutely. So.
And so that's my key is to, and even when you're done with surgery, you're probably going to still need my services to kind of keep that going.
Right. Right.
And to do the things you want to do.
Sure, exactly.
So that, there's no one thing that fixes everybody.
Right.
And so the fact that we have these options at this day and age in humanity is phenomenal.
You hit nail on the head. Did you have those That's what can drive me crazy sometimes in our field, is that I want to go to this one person and answer all the questions. Even at Personal Edge, we have the most qualified staff in the Southeast. I'm an idiot not to utilize all of my staff, to help somebody. Mm-hmm. And I would love to tell you that since I have the most experience and been there the longest or whatever, I know more than everybody does. No, I don't. When it comes to athletic training or injury or whatever, I'm going to Gary. He's my head athletic trainer. And he may even go to Kaylee, who's newer out of school, and maybe she's seen something different than he has. This is the same thing as we're talking about over in the entire field of health. Mm-hmm. Why not look at all the different options and what have you? But you and I could be on this one all day, exactly, so I'm going to step away from it. But what I want to get to is what you and I guess you and I talk about quite often. And you heard a podcast that I did the other day. We're going to touch on that in another podcast. But I love the fact, and we've known this for years, this is not new information, that the body can heal itself. Mm-hmm. Now, and I like to use the example of, well, if you don't think that's true, then go out and scratch your car, and then take that same tool and scratch yourself, mm-hmm. and look at the car 4 weeks from now, and look at yourself 4 weeks from now. Well, it's going to heal. It's going to scab over. It's going to heal. Whatever, your car's not going to do that. Nobody's surprised to know that. But what they don't know, that goes all the way through the body.
It does, yeah.
In every aspect up to it, down all the way into what you and I were talking about earlier, which is basically fascia and what have you, understanding mm-hmm. fascia. And so I want to dive head first into this topic and going into the body healing itself, and also the things we know and we still don't know about the human body, which is why I think it's ridiculous to put a timeline on our lifespan. So, but we were talking about fascia. Okay. Tell me what that word is. Give us a full description here.
Okay. So fascia, it has another term called connective tissue.
Okay.
And it is something we know very little about.
Right.
Because we don't focus on it. So humans have been dissecting other humans for about 300-400 years when the Catholic Church says, okay, stop dissecting gorillas. You can now do humans.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Fascia was named its own organ system in 2018. So out of 400 years.
Amazing. I didn't realize that. So it's amazing.
So out of the 400 years of us, cutting open human cadavers, we've only named it now.
Yeah.
So that's how far behind we are. And when people think of physicians and medical training, they're like, oh, well, you do, your anatomy class, you have a cadaver, you work on that cadaver for a full year.
Yeah.
You must know everything about it. No.
Right.
It's what does a school want you to learn? Okay, let me move all this stuff out of the way. Oh, there's the liver.
Yeah. Move all this stuff out. You're
muscle.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's the stuff you scrape away.
Right.
What people don't realize is most of our body, first you have water, then you have fascia.
Okay.
So out of the weight of the body, the fascia is the second heaviest thing in the body.
No, I didn't realize that.
And it's contiguous.
Right.
Throughout your entire body. You can't have a part of the body that does not have fascia connected to it.
Okay.
Now we think of muscle and tendon.
Right.
Attached to bone.
Right.
But each muscle cell is wrapped in fascia. Each muscle fiber or each muscle bundle and then group is all wrapped in fascia. So if you cut open a steak, now, yes, you'll see the fat, but you see those little organizations in the steak?
Yeah.
That's fascia coordinating it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Everything lives in fascia and is coordinated by fascia.
Since every single part of your body is wrapped up in that, I think it would be worthwhile for us to study it a bit and dive in first into it.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's no money in it. Okay. So the biggest organizations that study it, they're overseas. They're not here in the United States. We're starting to do that.
Right.
Now in med school, we do anatomy on embalmed cadavers.
Right.
That distorts so much of the tissue.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you can go to these courses. And I would love to go, but they're very expensive.
Right.
They're called fresh cadavers.
Oh, wow.
These are non-embalmed, and they look at the fascia. And so the detail is completely different.
I'm sure.
The University of Padua in Italy is one of the biggest research places. And then also Germany is another country that does a lot of research into this. And we're just starting to understand the fascia. There's just so much to it.
That's interesting, that approach that you say. Of course, I'm a severe patriot, as I know you are too, and love the country and what have you, so not into a bash in America. But there are a lot of, and for various reasons, we won't get into those, but there's a lot of that studying that is allowed in those different countries. For instance, Personal Edge was touched with that. We had a massage therapist that was on staff that was with us for several years, who was trained in Germany. He was actually a physiotherapist in Germany.
Yeah.
And there were so many things that he was trained in that he was not legally allowed to do.
Exactly.
And we talked to a client that had actually gone over there to have joint replacement surgery because he wanted it done there because they had him up. He was actually a hip and had him up and walking a lot faster than we would have. The rehab was much better. I'm hoping that we're going to see that more in the United States, but
I think we will.
I believe so too. We've talked about fascia. We've talked about, well, since it's connected everywhere, it's a part of everything that we have in our bodies. Okay, it must be important. Why? What do you deal with in your practice as far as fascia is concerned?
So getting back to the osteopathic principle of if you free up the restrictions in the body will heal itself.
Right.
So what I tell my patients, and having done this for 27 plus years now, is most of our injuries has to do with the fascia and the connective tissue.
Okay.
Think of your bicep. You have two muscle bellies.
Right.
And if I go to pick up this water bottle, I'm utilizing a certain percentage of those muscles.
Absolutely.
If I go grab back there my 50-pound weight, I'm using more.
Right.
So these structures need to glide past each other.
Sure.
And so there becomes a point where that fascia becomes restricted or it has a little damage.
Okay.
And I call it the accumulation of life.
Right. Okay.
And so back when you were 20, you were skipping stones and you threw it wrong. And you're like, oh, that hurt my shoulder.
Right. Yeah.
So just like you talked about scratching yourself, that healing process goes on inside.
Exactly.
It's going to repair itself. You're going to have a little bit more blood flow in there to kind of bring out damaged tissue and repair that tissue.
Right.
You're going to repair 80, 90%, maybe even 100%.
Sure.
But then a month later, you do something else, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that twinged again. So we collect these traumas throughout our life.
Right, okay.
Car accidents. Most of my patients are always looking for that one thing that caused this.
Right. It could be straw that broke the camel's back, an accumulation.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Rarely, it's unusual, not rare. It's unusual for it to be the one thing. Yes, you had the car accident, but it's usually the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
So what I do is I get in there and I work on the fascia. Some techniques are very gentle. Other techniques I'm really getting in
aggressive,
there and
yes,
getting
I'm
at
sure.
it. And people are amazed at how quickly their mechanics. And I try to look, yes, I was trained in the anatomy. I can find this muscle or that nerve or what have you.
Sure.
But I try to look at the entire mechanics of things.
Right.
Like my patients that come in with knee pain, chronic knee pain.
Yes.
I don't touch the knee for the first couple of visits.
Okay.
I'm working on the foreleg, the ankle, the hip, the low back.
Yes.
I'm getting the mechanics working again there.
Right.
And that's going to start offloading the knee.
Well, as you see, Dr. Langevin and I got into quite a bit there on fascia, which I find fascinating that we know so little about that particular organ in our body. Now, stay tuned, because the next week we're going to actually have part 2 of that discussion. We're going to go a little deeper into that and also go into what he was talking about, how working with someone, you don't want to start just with where you see the problem, but what other connective parts of the body that actually could be causing that problem, and actually looking for what caused the problem in the first place, not just fixing it, but what caused the problem in the first place. If you have any questions about this particular podcast or interested in any more information, please contact us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That's our email address. My email address, of course, personaledgefitness.com, our website, and Personal Edge Fitness, our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter or X at Team PE if you're so inclined. But stay tuned for next week. We're going to have part 2 of this, and we've actually got a few other podcasts with Dr. Langevin. Spanning the miles to speak to the professionals in every aspect of health, fitness, and wellness, and dispel those myths is one more way we help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope we see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.